Hello, Art for Life class. Here is the steps once you get your picture printed and your grid paper. I have sent home this paper with the grid on it. It's a 16 by 20, and I've also printed your picture if you have sent it to me. It is turned into a pop art form, and now I have a grid over it, just like I have the big paper. And this size here is an 8 by 10. So I'm making this picture twice as big. If you took studio art with me or Mrs. Farber, it's the same exact format as we did the grid portraits. The only difference is that this is broken down into shapes, and we're not going to try to make it look realistic. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the first square in the corner of your image. So whatever you see here, you're going to draw in here. So as you can see, I have all this going on here. If you find that your image has lots of little like dots and shapes going on that is too much, you can ignore it. And like for instance, this little dot here that I have, and maybe this dot here and that dot, I probably won't draw those in because it's not going to really matter. You'll also notice maybe in some of yours that there's a lot of like chunky, like little tiny like jagged edges in here. I would just kind of turn that in to almost just like a solid straight line, just because it's just going to get confusing. So I will draw the first one and you'll get an idea. So if you have not done this before, when you're drawing in each square, you want to kind of back off a little bit before you start drawing and study it a little bit. So I can see that this is going to start probably about 2/3 or a third down the way. So I know right about here is where I'm going to start to draw that shape. This part ends almost halfway, so I'll stop right about there. So just kind of, study those references of where things are going to end, where things are going to begin. And another thing that I want to let you know is when you are drawing, not only are you looking at the image, the positive image, you also want to look at the negative part of the image. So what I mean by it, let me draw this in and then I'll explain to you what I mean. As you can see, these are smoother lines rather than this jaggedness that I got going on there. That's what I meant before. So I have this drawn in. It's a little more abstract than that, but that's okay. So I'm going to look at this shape here and this shape here. I'm going to look at this shape, which is this darker area here. But I'm also going to look at that shape, and then I'm going to look at this shape. This one here is a little off, but for the most part it looks pretty good. You don't have to get as technical with it as you would in the studio art drawing that we did, where it was like the realistic one. So then once you get that square drawn, you're going to go over to the next square. You're going to continue where you laid off, or you were kind of ended there. And then just keep drawing what you see. And that almost looks like that's all I'll draw there. Then I'll continue over here. So I have this shape here. I got all that open space, and then I also have just a little bit coming up here. And then it goes into the next square. And this one actually comes in right there. And I got just a little edge there going in, and then I got this in-between area here. Like I said, it's simple shapes that you want to make it, simple lines. All right, and then I'm just going to continue all the way over to the edge. Some areas you'll find, it depends on each person's picture, some areas won't even have anything to draw. All right, so then after I get that whole row drawn up, then I move down to the second row. You will find that it's easy to get lost. Sometimes you have to really back off and count to make sure you're in the correct box. So like if you were to take a break and then go back, make sure you count these boxes along with the paper. So like if I left off right here, I need to count my squares to make sure that I know where I'm going. So I already got 1, 2, 3, 4. This is where I left off. So I know that I need to do number 5. Okay, so that's what I mean by that. Okay, so then once you get that all drawn in, you are going to paint with acrylic paint the shapes. Now you will see that some of you, I actually turn into a pop art style for you. If that's the case, you can change the coloring. So for instance, I'll use Ashley's here. Sorry, Ashley. So if you do not like the green background with the yellow and the pink, what I would suggest is if you're going to change the pink to maybe a blue instead, then everywhere you see the pink in your picture, when you go to start to paint, you want to make sure that everything that's pink will be blue instead. If you wanted to make the yellow maybe like a cream color, then everything that you see yellow here will be cream. So you can change up your own colors. All right. Another thing I want to point out, if you have a lot of stuff like this, like Ashley does, I would break this down simpler for you. Or what you could do is just do the the outside edge here. Okay, and then instead of doing all that stuff in there, you can break that background down a little bit. Another thing I want to show you, when I was working with mine, I was going in the landscape view. Okay, so I had it horizontal was my paper. Make sure, now Ashley's is actually vertical, so she's got the portrait view. You want to make sure that your paper is portrait also when you go to start drawing. So that's very important that you make sure the paper is in the correct way before you start drawing, or else you'll run out of space. Okay, so those are some tips I want to give you on this. When I start to get to the point where I'm about to paint, I'll do another quick short video just to give you some tips. Okay, so have fun drawing.